Hi everyone, it's Marian, and for today's video, I'm sharing with you my top 10 plants in 2023. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I do this every year around this time, usually for Vlogmas. Obviously, I did do Vlogmas this year where I share the top 10 plants in my own plant collection. But to be honest, I kind of debated if I should still do this because, as mentioned, I didn't even do Vlogmas this year, and I haven't put out a plant video in quite a while. And I also didn't get to do my fall plant collection video, but I still wanted to do this because I think my plants deserve a lot of credit, especially after everything they went through this year. At the beginning of the year, I had to move to a different place and I had to sell a lot of my plants. And just throughout the year, it's just been tons of up and downs with them. Well, I have to give a lot of credit to my plants. And to be honest, doing a top 10 plants in my plant collection is kind of unfair. The other plants, they're not going to make it on the list because the mere fact they're still standing here after the crazy year that they had with me. But they do deserve all the credit even though they didn't make my top 10. And the plants that are making in my top 10 list are just the plants that I guess impressed me this year and maybe were a little bit more resilient than the other plants that I had and just brought me joy this year, especially during the times that I needed it. But before I get started, if you're new to my channel, hi, my name is Marian. I create home and garden content as well as personal and travel vlogs here and there. So if that type of content interests you, make sure to subscribe to this channel before the end of this video. And make sure to like and comment down below. Tell me what are your favorite plants from this year. I would love to hear from you. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So even though I let go or lost a lot of plants this year, I still added quite a few plants in my plant collection. And one of them is the Peruvian apple cactus that I received as PR from Varnish and Vine. And even though this is PR, I actually really love this plant because I've always wanted a large cactus as part of my plant collection, but also very hesitant because I'm not really good with succulents and cactus. They don't really have a good track record with me. And so I was kind of scared that I would kill this one. But I think because I really got a good propagation cut from Varnish and Vine, and I highly recommend if you're going plant shopping online to check them out. They have sustainably sourced cactus, which is very important because cactus and succulents are among the highly poached plants within the plant industry. So it's really important to know where your plants are sourced, especially for cactus and succulents. So I highly recommend Varnish and Vine if you want to make sure that your plants are sustainably sourced. And with the Peruvian apple cactus, I actually didn't know anything about it, but I wanted it just because it was a large cactus. And I did receive it as a propagation. And when I potted it up, I was actually kind of scared that it was going to die on me. But it didn't. And actually, at one point, it did flower. But I actually wasn't able to witness the bloom myself or have a recording of it because I didn't realize until after that it only blooms once and it only blooms at night. So I kind of missed the window on it. So hopefully next year I'll be more watchful and hopefully catch the bloom next year. And I'm really excited for that. For the next plant, let me just grab it here. It is in my hexagon shelf that I put up, which I'm really proud of because I've always wanted a hexagon shelf. But the next plant in my top 10 is the Silver Glory. I used to have all three varieties of the string of hearts, at least the popular one, the regular, the string of hearts variegated, and this one. But this is the only one that I have left. And while I've been pretty good with the plants that I've lost, whether I sold them or they just died in my care, one plant that really hit hard for me was the string of hearts variegated, and I was kind of upset about that. And honestly, it was my fault. I think I overwatered it one time and forgot to let it properly drain. And I hope sometime in the future I'll be able to replace it either through trade or I'll find it for a very good price because I really like that plant. But I do like this Silver Glory. This one I originally got in New York in 2022 when I went to the plant district. I did a whole tour of that. If you missed it, I'll link it up here and also down in the description. And this is the only plant that I bought from there. It cost like $35. It came in a much larger basket with longer trails on it, but when I brought it back to Maryland, it just continued dying and drying up until I was just left with a few strands. But now it started to grow back and it is this now. And the thing with the Silver Glory is you can look at the newer growth. It just looks like a regular string of hearts. It doesn't always have this kind of like shape and silver variegation in it, which for other people it kind of upsets them about the silver glory, but for me that's fine because I do like the regular string of hearts. But I do hope as it matures it will take a lot more of the silver glory shape. But either way, I love it. It is currently my only string of hearts right now, so I'm kind of like very protective of it. But I love it, and this one is actually due for watering, so I need to water this after I film this video. The next plant is my Hoya fishtail, which I also took down from my hexagon plant shelf. And I really like this one because ever since I started my plant collection, I always wanted a Hoya fishtail that is trailing. And this one is still not quite there yet, but as you can see, this one has a really long trail. And this one is starting to trail as well. It actually had a third vine, but I had to cut it off yesterday when I was watering it because it wasn't looking too good. It honestly had like mealybugs on it. So I decided to cut it off before it infected the other vines. And I'm currently propagating that vine in water. But this one by itself, it looks pretty good. And I hope by next year I have like a much more fuller Hoya fishtail, kind of like the ones you see on Instagram. So that is still my goal with this plant. And I'm really happy that I was able to grow this from a single propagation that I got maybe a couple years back when I traded a Thicon for it. Speaking of Thicons, so this baby Thicon, as you saw, I took from the top shelf of my work desk, and this is actually a propagation of the bigger Thicon that I have, which is in my bedroom. But actually, that bigger one is the propagation. This one is the mother plant. And I repotted this during summer, I believe, because it was suffering from root rot. And honestly, I was scared to lose this because remember last year I got a huge one from Costa Farms, and I was so fortunate to be among the very few that got the Costa Farms Thicon, and I ended up killing it after a year. So with this one, I was also kind of scared that the same thing would happen, but I think I learned my lesson from that one, that after I repotted it, I just left it alone and let it do its thing, let it recover on its own, and so far it's doing well. And I know after I repotted it, it was still suffering from root rot, but I told myself, you know what, let it be, stop touching it, let it do its thing. It would figure it out itself by its own, and it did. So both this and the larger one is surviving. Hopefully it will survive through the next year. But so far what I did worked by just leaving it alone after repotting it once. And I'm actually very excited for this. This is the only Monstera that I have in my plant collection right now, to be honest. I do have the regular Monstera deliciosa still, but as far as any other varieties of Monsteras, the Monstera deliciosa is the only Monstera I currently have in my plant collection, and I used to have quite a few. So I'm really glad that among all the plants that survived this year, one of them is my Thicon. So for the next plant on my list, we have to move into my bedroom. And want to take a guess which among the three made it? 1, 2, 3. It's the White Princess Philodendron. So this is my White Princess Philodendron. I did get it off a plant swap, the one plant swap I went to this year, which was at Plants Alive, and I actually got this for free. I didn't even swap anything for it. The guy that had it just had it on the free table, and the moment he put it down on the free table, I grabbed it. And I do have a pink princess, but the pink princess that I have is not very variegated or at all. So I was hoping this one was going to be a little bit more variegated. So when I got it, it had like one leaf that was almost half moon. It has since died, unfortunately, but so far the new growth has been showing a lot of white variegation, and it's actually two plants. Like, I don't know if you can see, like over here, it is two plants. I'm still kind of debating if I should cut it and propagate it. Maybe at one point I will, but so far I do like that it's growing two plants in one, and I probably would do it during the growing season when I have space to have plants in separate containers. But so far I like it this way. I was never really attracted to bushy philodendrons, so with this one I was so surprised that it made it to my top 10. But like I said, it was from a plant trade, and plant trades are a great way to get plants and add plants to your plant collection, and also to meet plant people in your community. So if you haven't been to a plant swap, I highly recommend it. You could easily find it in Facebook groups, plant Facebook groups in your area, or go check out your local plant shops. Usually they're the ones that are hosting it. In this case, it was Plants Alive in Silver Spring, Maryland that hosted it along with Cultivate the City. If you're in the area, check them out. They are great. It's worth the trip if you're from the DC area to go check them out. They have lots of great plants and also a lot of plant events every month, almost every week. So check them out. I'll leave their socials down in the description. And this was the larger Thicon that I mentioned earlier. Kind of hard to get into frame, so I'll make sure to show clips of it. But that is that one. But the plant that I really want to talk about that's part of my top 10 is my Ficus Audrey. I do have quite a number of ficus plants, well, ficus trees at this point, with my Ficus Ruby Elastica, 2 fiddle figs, and a small Ficus Taniki, and then my Ficus Audrey. And I think my Ficus Audrey is the best out of all of them right now. And I really like my Ficus Audrey because it has grown so well for me. I never really had issues with it. I pruned it once, notched it once, and continuous branching for me. I actually had to prune it back when I brought it back in after the summer because it just gotten too big for the space, and now it's still growing new branches and new leaves. So I really like it. I think it's a great statement plant to have in your house. So if you're trying to choose a ficus plant for your house, fiddle figs are not for you. I know a lot of people have issues with fiddle figs. Try out the Ficus Audrey, you might like it. Next one in my top 10 list is this Alocasia Silver Dragon, which is very surprising because I am not an Alocasia person. I did get this off a plant swap that I went to, same where I got my White Princess Philodendron. And with this one, I wasn't really too sure if I wanted it, but it is for free. Let me try my hand on Alocasia. And I know this used to be like a very rare, expensive plant, but ever since Costa Farms started mass producing it, it has become widely available and affordable to the point that you could get it for free at plant swaps. So I did decide to try my hand on it. Let's see how well it does for me. It is winter time. I do hear this one kind of like tend to die out during winter time, but has that ability to come back during spring. We will see. So far it is still surviving. It is a very slow grower for me. I think it did get all of this leaves were new growth under my care, but the original 2 leaves that it had already died out. So we'll see what happens with it. Again, just hoping it will survive the winter for me. If not, that's okay, but I'm just really surprised that I'm able to care for a Alocasia indoors. That's mainly the reason it is in my top 10 is I got an Alocasia to survive, especially during this year where I've killed a lot of plants, including pothos plants, which I know you're probably already thinking, if you've watched me for a while, why I haven't mentioned any pothos plants yet in this list. There isn't going to be one, unfortunately, even Synapsis plants. I did lose majority of my pothos plants. I only have a golden pothos now and a Manjula plant that is not even my original Manjula plant. I'm trying to do an end of the year vlog and maybe explain everything with the plants and show you kind of like how I care for my plants before I go on a long vacation, which I am going on a trip at the end of this year. But yeah, no pothos plants this year, including Synapsis plants, actually. But yeah, I know it's interesting coming from me, but I still love them. I still love my pothos plants and my Synapsis plants. But the thing is, even though I lost quite a number of them this year, those plants are easy to replace. That's a great thing about pothos plants. So I'm not too sad or not too mad about them. But yeah, the Alocasia Silver Dragon surprisingly made it into my top 10. So I have previously retired my greenhouse cabinet, but I had to bring it back for the winter time just to be able to house these plants, including these 3 that are part of my top 10 plants for 2023. And this year I also had like a great fascination or affinity for putting plants in poles. So the last 3 are 3 of my plants that are in poles. And the first one is the Philodendron El Chocorad. And I know it doesn't look much right now. It still has small leaves, but honestly, it has gone a long way from when I bought it from Equigenera during a pop-up they had at Plants Alive in Maryland that didn't really survive for me, to be honest. It was reduced to essentially nodes, and I sold like 3 of the nodes that it had and only kept one for myself, and this is the one. And the fascinating thing about this is even as it was growing new leaves already, it was still not producing any roots. And even at this point, to be honest, I haven't checked, but the last time I repotted it, it still hasn't had roots. But now it has grown like 3 more new leaves, larger this time. So I'm hoping it has already have some established root. It looks like it from when I'm watering it, since it still have that clear transparent pot that I use for it. So it is fascinating, this philodendrons, and I'm glad it has come a long way, because to be honest, among all my climbing philodendrons, that is probably the one that's just gonna stay with me. I do have like a smaller one, Melandochrysum, that also surprisingly is growing, and I did have my Veracosum this year, which is one of my top plants for this year, and it would have made this list. Unfortunately, during the process of moving my plants back indoors, it didn't survive. So I did lose that plant. So that was kind of like, honestly, the loss wasn't too bad because I know I had the El Choco Red, and so that's kind of like my main philodendron right now. And the next one is the philodendron Brandthianum, and I am proud of this one because I have numerous failures with Brandthianum in the past, and finally I kind of like finally figured out how to care for a Brandthianum, and it is to put it in a pole. And I have repotted this twice now, and it's still growing well and growing strong, and I'm really happy for it. Although to be honest, I don't know how long I can keep it in a pole, because even as it grows, I don't really see it growing really large leaves to make it worthwhile to be kept in a pole. But in my experience with the Brandthianum, it is not good as a trailing house plant. So we'll see what happens with it. Right now it stays in a pole. It will probably stay in a pole in the foreseeable future because that's how it grows best. But we will see. But so far I'm really glad with the growth, and I'm really proud that I'm finally become successful with the philodendron Brandthianum. And the last plant, and certainly not the least in my top 10 plants for 2023, is my Syngonium albo. So I think this is the plant, if everything goes, and I don't want everything to go, but if everything goes, is probably the plant that's going to stay with me because it is very, very beautiful. It is gorgeous. At the beginning of the year, I actually cut a lot of cuttings from it to sell, and it just became like this really small, sad plant. But now it kind of like came back to its original glory at the beginning of the year, which I'm really glad. And also at one point, it stopped pushing out variegated leaves, and I decided to prune it back, and now it's pushing so much variegated leaves to the point that it's also pushing out a lot of completely white leaves. And I really like this plant. I think this is one of the prettiest, if not my prettiest plant that I have in my plant collection. So that's why I really take a lot of pride in it, and putting it in a pole the way that I have, it also allowed it to grow a little bit more compact, so there's less gaps in between leaves, so it looks just so much fuller. So I really like it. I really love this plant. That's why I think this might be its second year in the top 10 list, maybe a third year, and deservingly so, because it is a great house plant. So honestly, if you're gonna go in the variegated route, especially like the albo variegated route, go with a Syngonium albo, especially a highly variegated one. You will not be disappointed. It is such a great plant to have, easier care than most albo variegated plants, and if you get a really variegated one, it's just so satisfying to see it grow and grow so beautifully. And that's my top 10 plants in 2023 from my plant collection. And as mentioned earlier, the rest of my plants deserve honorable mention for the year that they had with me, and to make it to my core plant collection. They are ultimate warriors and survivors, so kudos to them. And hopefully next year they have a better year with me. So I'm rooting for them, pun intended. And let me know down in the comments if you have a favorite plant from your plant collection this year, or what are your wish list plants for next year. But thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you're new here, please do subscribe. And I have a lot of exciting stuff planned for next year, so I hope you join me in 2024 as well. And if you haven't yet, check out these videos up here until my next one. But until then, I see you, I appreciate you, take care of yourself and each other. Happy holidays, happy new year, have a plentiful day. Bye.